Alright, hello everyone, it's Silver Kyle, and today I'm going to be talking about remasters and remakes in video games, more specifically in this generation of consoles. So the reason why I want to do this is because lately I've really been wanting to talk about this generation of consoles. Not too long ago, Happy Console Gamer made a video called Does This Generation Suck? Where he gives his thoughts and his opinions on what he thinks about the current generation, because a lot of people apparently have been saying that they don't like this generation, that it's not, that it does suck. And about a year ago, I had actually made a video called Has this new generation of consoles actually begun? Because at the time, I really hadn't felt that we had played an actual game that really felt like it was from a new generation instead of still from the PS3 and Xbox 360 Wii era. And I'd like to do an updated video for that. But before I hop onto that topic, I wanted to talk about remasters and remakes because they are so prevalent in this generation. Now, this is not a new concept. They've been doing this for quite a long time. Like PlayStation 1 era with Final Fantasy Anthology. I mean, I wouldn't count it for Final Fantasy V because that was the first time that we could ever play Final Fantasy V in North America. But Final Fantasy VI had been done on the Super Nintendo. But this is still a little bit different because it's a property that was played on a Nintendo console that you can now play on a Sony console. So this is a little bit different, but still it is basically, you know, remaking a specific game for a different console, for a later version. And I won't exactly count the handhelds either because, for example, Star Fox 3D, Star Fox 64 3D, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D, Tales of the Abyss, these are remasters, you know, of these games, but they're on a handheld. So it's a different experience than playing it on a TV. So these ones, they're still remasters, and I still do count them a little bit, but they're still, like, they're 0.5 of a remaster. And for what I'm talking about in this topic. What I do count, though, or still 0.5, but it's getting closer, maybe 0.75, is where it started to become really popular for remasters and remakes was the HD collections that we got for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. For example, the Jak and Daxter collection, Jak and Daxter, Jak 2, Jak 3, all remade in HD for the PlayStation 3. The Sly collection, the God of War collection, which is God of War 1 and 2. You know, these I kind of, once again, still kind of count, but at the same time not, because we never played these games in HD. So that is something different from remaking a game not in HD. Nintendo was really not that guilty, other than, you know, when they made it for like their handheld systems, but and they didn't really do that often with the Wii. Like I can think of Okami as one of them, and they had like different controls as well for like they did Pikmin with the controls that you could play with the Wii U or the Wii nunchuck. Was it the Wii nunchuck? The Wiimote. And then they also did, and then for the Wii U, I can't think of any other than the Legend of Zelda series. So they remade Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. But these, once again, a little bit different because they are HD. But then you get to something like the Halo collection, which has 3 and 4, which were on the Xbox 360, but it still does have 1 and 2. Which, you know, you couldn't play it in HD before, so it's like half the game, or half of those games are already on something that we've played in HD. Then you get something like Gears of War Ultimate Edition. Gears of War was on the Xbox 360, was in HD. Same thing with the Uncharted series. 1, 2, and 3 were all played on the PlayStation 3, all in HD already. And then you get something like Grand Theft Auto 5, which I think was released like a year after the Grand Theft Auto came out on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. They waited like a year or two, and then they released this. Same thing with The Last of Us remastered. That was like a year after that original game had been released on the PlayStation 3. So in those instances, I'm like, God, well, like there's no reason yet to be playing that again. Don't get me wrong, I still like remasters and remakes, and there's some games that I feel like, you know, if you jump something from such a, like, for example, Final Fantasy VII, which was made on the PlayStation 1, and you're remaking that game from the ground up, basically, while you still know kind of like, they're changing a little bit the gameplay, but they could have completely made the same storyline, the same gameplay, and just made it look nicer, like, so remaking all the the engine, or they'd probably use a different engine that's already currently made, but they would still be remaking everything instead of just adding HD to it. That I still like the Legend of Dragoon. I would love to get a remake of that instead of a remake. I would just freak out if they would make that for Xbox One, PlayStation, or PlayStation 4. Probably PlayStation 4 because it's a Sony property. But I would just freak out. But at the same time, there are way too many remakes and remasters that don't really need them to an extent. I mean, the Batman series is getting remade. The Arkham games, BioShock, the collection is being remade. It's all anything that was a big hit, a big series last generation is now being remade for the current generation, and it's a double-edged sword for me because sometimes, like, I do pick these games up. I do want to play these once again with better graphics. Not all the time. For certain series, I do, and some of them it's for multiplayer. Like the Halo series, that's completely like Halo 1 and 2, you cannot play on the original Xbox Online anymore. So for that, that I completely understand. Halo 2 is one of my favorite multiplayer FPS games. So for me, I was just like, this is freaking awesome that I'm totally going to pick that up. But the reason why I think that they make these remakes and remasters, one of the reasons is that for the newer generation. So instead of, Halo 5 was released on the Xbox One, and to really, if you care about the storyline, not the multiplayer, if you want to get into the storyline, you kind of have to play 1, 2, 3, and 4. I mean, you could just jump into it and you'd kind of be fine. But if you care a lot about storyline, you'd have to play these games. So they're doing this for like a younger audience so that they can experience these games and care about these series and continue buying the series. So it's not just people my age that are caring about these series. Same thing with the Uncharted series. If Uncharted 4 was released on PlayStation 4, so you'd have to play 1, 2, and 3 to then play 4 if you care about the storyline. So on that aspect, I understand it. The other aspect is that it is cheaper to remake these games instead of making a brand new game. My problem is that we're getting flooded with all these games, these remakes and remasters, instead of getting newer games, instead of getting newer properties. It's not as big of a team that needs to work on these remakes, but it's still a team that's working on these that could be focusing on something else, maybe finishing up and polishing up games, having those extra people on hand could make it so that, when the game is actually released, it works properly, or it gets released on the time that they said it was going to be released, like The Last Guardian. I don't think that The Last Guardian is really anybody's fault that, the team got cut in half or something to go work on remakes or something. I'm just saying that there are games, that sometimes get released and they're not, fully ready. And I think that if you had people that weren't working on these remakes and remasters and maybe helping in those departments or somewhere else, that they could have focused more on working on these games or making completely new games, which, that's I think that what bothers me the most. So it's kind of a double-edged sword because there are sometimes certain games that I like being remade. I would never complain about the Halo series because I cannot play Halo 1 and 2 on the Xbox anymore multiplayer. So that I understand. Even if you look at the Uncharted series, if the online is still playable and on the PlayStation 3, not as many people are playing that. Whereas with a new game, you have a bigger audience usually when a new game gets released. So for multiplayer games, I kind of understand them. And then there's I would just kill for a Legend of Dragoon remake. I would just die for that. So there's certain times where I do like them, but I just feel that there's too many and it's taken away from other projects that they could be working on or fixing problems with the current games that they are releasing. So that's my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below what you think about remakes and remasters. Do you hate them? Do you love them? Are you kind of in the middle like myself? Let me know. Thank you all for watching. You've been bearded in. Beardage.